Get knocked, Sparta! No hug needed!
This is Omar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. With me today on Bank Holiday Monday, so thank you very much for giving me some of your time. Neil Marsh, how are things, Neil? Are you all good?
Yeah, all good, thank you. How's yourself?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Neil. Let's get straight into it. So, your man's name was talked about a lot last week. David AVANESYAN, of course, Connor Benn box. So, a lot of the reporters were asking promoter HEARN and Connor about David AVANESYAN and a potential fight with the two down the line. Just want to firstly ask you, how comes you didn't kind of respond to comments and stuff during the week, and why have you done the interview that we're doing now after Connor's fight?
Yeah, I just think that I didn't want to disrupt Connor fight week. I don't think it was right. So I just let him get his fight out of the way. I didn't want to start, popping up and being disrespectful to the kid, because that's one thing I'm not. But obviously, I've heard little, in what my opinion is, lots of little digs and version of events being spoke, which I completely disagree with. Like you said, there's always two sides to every story, but it just looks like certain people are putting out events and making it sound completely different than what it is. So I just felt that it's about time that I set the record straight, Umar. And that's exactly what it is.
Okay, so yeah, set the record straight for me on a few things, please, Neil. The eliminator against Rocha is brought up a lot by Eddie Hearn. He's saying that when you guys were with him, when David was with Matchroom, you guys turned that down. So can you make any comment on that, please, Neil?
Okay. Immediately after the Kelly fight, at a chat with Eddie, backstage, you were probably there. I said, Eddie, do not leave this kid on the fence. I said, we'll work with you properly. Just get him a big fight. Post-fight, Eddie was saying that the kid's world-class. He's deserving of a big opportunity. They'll do everything they can for a world title. These type of things, final eliminators. And cut long story short, within weeks, just doing what a manager should do, I'm on the phone to Frank Smith regular saying, come on, what are you going to give us? And he offered us Alexis Rocha. At this time, there was no mention of an eliminator. So we had a little quick look. I didn't even watch the kid properly. And it was like, he's just been beat. And, he hasn't got a big name. He's not really ranked. What use is this, Frank? I went back to Frank and said, what use is this? He went, well, it's just an idea that there'll be more coming. So I said, okay, I'll look forward to more, because that's not worth a carrot to us. So anyway, over the next few weeks, you're loosing off, and Virgil Ortiz was mentioned. And we just said, can you do another final eliminator? He said, we think so. We can work on it. I said, let's do it. No problem. Spoke to David, Carl, no problem. Let's do it. Feel free to ask Frank Smith them words next time you interview him. Did we accept these fights? Because we did. So cut long story short, the fights didn't happen for whatever reason. But because of the delicate situation with David and Matchroom, and the Kelly fight, how long he'd been dragged on, how many times he'd been fallen through and different things, I've done my job correctly, where Matchroom had to provide a contest for David within a time period. But we was getting close to this time period now. And it was like May time, I think. And so we then start asking Frank. I said, Frank, what's going on? This isn't the deal. So Frank Smith comes back to me and he then says, we will offer you Alexis Rocha. I went, well, you're not acting in good faith, because we've already said no to that 8 weeks ago. He was on the back of a loss and different things. So he said, oh, we can do it for an eliminator. But everybody in boxing who knows the game knows an eliminator doesn't achieve anything. It will increase your rating. It'll get you positioned, but it's not a final eliminator. And at the time, with everything what's going on with the WBA, tidying the belts up and different things, there's people before you, like you can ring the governing body and find out if there's any opportunities for you to get in. But all this what's going on with Stanios and Butayev, who's only just fought Saturday night, all this had to take place. So, there was all that trouble over UGAS and, they wouldn't allow the Pacquiao fight and different things. So, in essence, what Matchroom wanted us to do is participate in an eliminator that doesn't achieve anything. Now, we'd have had to sit still and we had to wait for all this with the WBA to tidy up. And we're not even through it. There's going to be mandatories ordered. So that mandatory might only take place at end of year. Yeah. So then when the mandatory takes place, the champion has a voluntary. And then he might decide to unify. Could have been two years, Umar. Am I right? Boxing. Am I right with what I'm saying? That we wouldn't get anywhere near that belt. Am I right in saying this?
Yeah, I see your position as a manager and the fact that you wanted either a world title shot straight away or a final eliminator, and you're saying the eliminator with the WBA headache wasn't good enough for David Neck. So that's why you turned that fight down, is what you're saying.
100%, because it wouldn't achieve anything. But one thing is they wanted us to give the EBU belt up. So what would we have been left with? Now, cut long story short, I've had an EBU champion with Matchroom before who had a mandatory and he didn't even put a purse bid in. So they expected us to go overseas to a country like Spain where we know that the financial clout's not there. Mm. So, I'm not going to go into too much stuff, but the best way to explain it is I'd lost trust with Matchroom. I'd lost complete and utter trust. Don't trust them. That's it. And if you think I'm giving an EBU title up to satisfy Connor Benn, who had actually announced he was going to be fighting for it, I think it was in America he announced it, saying, yeah, I'm going to be fighting for EBU title. Have some respect for us. So you want to take our assets off us, put us in a meaningless fight, but also make it worse. When they offered us the fight with Alexis Rocha in the May time, he was scheduled to fight in the June. So what makes it even worse is let's remember what happened to David and how them years went by out of his career through little bits of COVID, but a lot of politics. So let's put it in perspective. You want us to give our European title up, accept a pointless eliminator, but also against a kid who had a fight scheduled a month after, and let's hope that he gets through it with no injuries. Am I thick? Am I stupid? Listen, it's like, what if the kid got injured? So that's out the way, you give your belt up. But yourself, if Alexis Rocha say we'd have accepted that, and Rocha had a hard fight in June, how many months later would we have had wait? They were contracted to give us a fight in a short time period, and they failed. And I just don't think he was acting in good faith. It looked to me like all they wanted was the EBU title off us. Well, that's the reason you have managers.
Okay, I see your point on the Alexis Rocha stuff, so we can move on. People will then say, Neil, that you've had 2 fights since then, since the Josh Kelly fight, where,
yes,
with all respect to Ascari Mets and Liam Taylor, they've been complete mismatches. So just talk me through why you boxed Liam Taylor and Ascari Mets.
Okay, Eddie's turned around and said along these lines that we rejected an eliminator, which you've just explained, and we went and we wanted to box Liam Taylor. Well, I'll call him straight out. It's a lie. It's a complete lie. And I'll tell you why it's a lie. Because we had a mandatory challenger called Your Device. Now, Your Device, 20-0 French kid, was mandated against us. There was a delay for the purse bid. And I asked Frank Smith, will you put that fight on? And he said, it doesn't stack up. It doesn't stack up. So again, it plays a part in why I didn't want, why I lost trust in Matchroom. So you don't want to let us answer our mandatory challenger. So are you going to allow a purse bid to happen? And then we get our belt took off us, Umar?
Yeah.
But what happened is, if I remember rightly, there were strong emails at this point going in. because I was intending to terminate. Your device pulled out of his mandatory position. And then a bit of time later, the EBU then ordered Liam Taylor as the next available mandatory challenger. So all we did was answer our mandatory challenger. And it's he also says about Liam Taylor, he won't win a British. Can you ask Team Ben and Eddie why did he refuse Team Liam Taylor on a couple of occasions? You know, because Liam Taylor's not a bad boxer, mate. He's a good kid. It's just that David was explosive on the evening, and that's why we had to fight Liam Taylor. We had no choice. But as a boxer who's just terminating an agreement, a contract with a promoter, and you've got a mandatory, you knew Sky had come into play, you knew Matchroom with her, you knew Liam Taylor was with MTK, you knew that there was a chance that there's going to be a decent payday coming for the kid in a fight. What we thought, you know, we'd get him out of there in 6-7 rounds or maybe 8 rounds. So that's why we answered our mandatory challenger with him. But I want to go on to some, just because it'll come up later on. Do you know how many views Liam Taylor did, Umar and David?
I know that did a lot on Sky. I do know that, yeah.
He did 400,000, I heard, mate. More than he'd done in the last previous so many years. So, you know, you put David in a proper fight, what happens? You know?
Okay, so yeah, you've answered the stuff on Alexis Rocha. You've answered the Liam Taylor one. He was a mandatory challenger. So that leads me on to Ascari Mets. Why did you box Ascari Mets?
Okay, now, let's bear in mind, David, in my opinion, hadn't been treated correctly. You know, I'm going to go back a little bit. When I was asking Frank Smith for fights, they left us waiting for Josh Kelly. When I even sent Matchroom pictures of Josh Kelly bigger than me, he was massive. And I said, there's no way he's fighting, but they still didn't want to give us a fight. So you look at all the pullouts, you look at the COVID, you look at how we feel we was left on the fence. When I signed an agreement with Frank Warren, similar to Zach Parker, I said to Frank, going off onto Zach a second, this kid desperately needs activity. You know, the worst thing what can happen to a fighter is non-activity. And Frank said, no problem. He said, we agreed the terms and I'll guarantee you activity. Whatever it takes, I will guarantee you activity. I might be wrong here. I think on that night, I think Joe Joyce should have been fighting. Am I right? I think there was other people supposed to be on that card. Was it?
On
now
Mets, I can't remember. Someone went to headline. Callum Johnson was going to headline.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so there was other names. So what happened is we looked through the like I've got a piece of paper here, the EBU ratings, and let me tell you, number 1, 2, and 3 are Connor Benn, McKinson, and Kell Brook. All of them had fights. You know, it's Kell Brook with Khan, Connor Benn not interested. McKinson was fighting Ortiz. But then the next available challenger was the French champion. I think he's EU champion as well. Well, not now. It's Moeeb. We asked him. We asked Miguez. Then there's number 8, Formella. Josh Kelly we've beaten. The only ones what were available was Mets and Musawi. Now, as a team, we looked at it, and it was a tick-over fight. We thought Mets was a lot better, but we thought we brought the one what we thought would be more fan-friendly. And listen, David again, explosive. We didn't know he was that bad. You know, you get limited coverage of the kid. So that's why, and Frank's got a lot of stick. Don't forget, Frank Warren has only promoted David for a few months. And he was good to his word. He said, Neil, I will not leave your man on the fence. He doesn't deserve it. And he gave him a fight. Before the fight, we were trying to force something with WBC to get him to order another final eliminator, which they didn't. You know, they need time. So that's why we box Mets. You know, and I'll talk about the criticism anyway later on, Umar. But yeah, that's why we box Mets. He was the only available challenger. There's 2 of them, and he was the one that stacked up. You know, but don't forget, we're not gonna break any records fighting an Ascari Mets. We knew what the fight was, and Frank still stuck with it, which I thank him for.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, Mill. So we've seen reportedly, well, according to Eddie Hearn, reportedly, the average figures for Mets and AVANESYAN was 6,000 people on BT. And according to him, there was only around 400, 500 people at the show. Now, I can confirm I was at the show. It wasn't many people there. I can confirm that. I don't know about the BT figures on BT. So, yeah, can you make any comment about the lack of pulling power David AVANESYAN has, according to Eddie Hearn?
Okay, so lack of pulling power. Again, I'll go back to Josh Kelly. He did 280,000, I believe, views in a meaningful fight. Liam Taylor, they smashed what Sky had done for years under Eddie's banner. You know, I'm not having a dig at Eddie. The facts, they did 400,000. I don't know if Matchroom did any what were bigger, but this will be up there as one of the biggest viewing figures. Now, on that same evening, were Ascari Mets. Don't forget, you've lost bigger fights. On the same night, Sonny Edwards was on another platform in a world title fight. But also on the doorstep was the UFC London. And we all spoke about that prior to the fight with Team Warren. And it was a bad night. It was a bad night before we start. But the UFC broke records with grossing amounts of money it brought in, how quickly it sold, viewing figures. I presume that it was skyrocket. The Ascari Mets and AVANESYAN fight was never, ever going to do any sort of numbers with the UFC on the same channel. It's like Eddie having UFC London on one channel and Connor Benn and Chris Algieri on another one. You tell me what a lot of the fans would. Do you get what I'm saying here, Umar?
I hear what you're saying. Can you make any comment on the fact that, again, according to him, it averaged 6,000 people across the night on BT?
I don't know. Listen, I could guess it did badly. You know, I'm not going to hide away from the fact, but there wasn't a lot of promotion on the build-up. Think about it, Umar. You know, all the promotions into UFC 22, and that skyrocketed. We didn't have a chance. But what Eddie's done there, instead of saying David AVANESYAN is a certain draw, he did 280,000, I believe, against Kelly. He did 400 against Taylor, and then he did 6 against Mets. He's homed in on the one bad part of it all. And he's now using that as the reason why David isn't a big enough draw for Connor Benn, which I completely disagree with.
So when people say that David AVANESYAN is high risk and low reward, what are your thoughts on that?
I suppose he is high risk and lower reward than some names, but some of the names he's mentioning, for example, Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman, I'll show my ass to I film if them fights get made, because him and Al Heyman don't get on. No, I'll show it you, and I'll walk down the street with it. That's a promise. So then you start looking at the other names, like Mikey Garcia, Adrian Broner, Roberto Guerreros. I put a poll out. Did you see the poll, Umar?
No, what was the poll? I didn't see it.
I put a poll out on Twitter, just a quick 24-hour one. approximately 5,500 people voted. 51% of people said AVANESYAN. 30% said Broner. 17% said Garcia. Mikey Garcia. It tells you what the public want. And Eddie then mentions that, Connor Benn's show was the only show trending on the night. You know, again, he's telling you you're part of what he wants you to hear. Has he told you that David AVANESYAN was trending on the night?
No.
Because he was, Umar.
Right.
Because he was. You know, it's like before my son and his mates come in. First thing they said is, David's just been on Talk Sport with Simon Jordan. His own commentators like Carl Froch are all saying, AVANESYAN. I've been here before. I just don't like the way it's been packaged together, Umar. Hence why I've come on and put the record straight.
Okay, let me ask you this as well. I see this a lot from fans. We know David, obviously, due for a WBC final eliminator. You can see by watching him, he's a world-class fighter. He's European champ. But people are like, you're chasing Connor Benn. So are you chasing Connor Benn?
No. Listen, first thing I say is I've got a lot of respect for Connor Benn, yeah? And Ben's got a warrior name. And I just thought that Warriors would relish this type of challenge, Umar. Can you hear me, mate? Yeah?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it just went a little bit. I thought a Warrior would relish this opportunity. Now, at one stage, because all the belts are tied up, it doesn't matter whether you're Bob Arum, Don King, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, you cannot provide David Avanesian a world title shot at the moment because they're all tied up. And if it's right that Crawford signs for Airman, they're going to unify. So it's about positioning, hence the final eliminator. Now, so as a manager who's based in England with someone who's building a nice reputation in Connor Benn, which I believe would sell out the O2 in a crack, is it not what the manager should do? Is look at the biggest paying fight for his fighter.
Yeah, of course.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Get what I'm saying?
Of course, yeah, it's your job. You just mentioned an interesting comment there that it'd sell out the O2, Ben Avanesian. I asked that to Eddie. I don't know if you saw on Saturday night after Connor's fight, and he was kind of suggesting it might not sell out the O2, Ben and Avanesian.
Well, what do you think?
I think it sells out the O2. I really do. I think it's a massive fight.
Well, why don't you go to Wembley Arena? What was that though? 12,500 and do an high price category.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't recommend that because I don't like the fans to be paying. But there's listen, this fight sells out, Umar. Because everybody knows I manage David Avanesian. I get asked about him and Ben every single day. You know, every single one of you press guys, you ask me, you hassle me. It's like it's got a big fight wrote all over. And it's like one what's going to have got away into. I always thought Connor wanted fight for the British and the Europeans. I don't think his dad did he? I've got massive respect for his dad, by the way. And it's going to be one of those fights that got away from us. It's a straightforward fight to make. It's easy. You know, I want you, Umar, and you probably won't. You put out a poll. Who do you want David Avanesian fighting? Put in, you know, with all respect to him, Michael McKinson, Danny Garcia. Go and put it in tonight on a poll and see what it comes back as. Because I know what the answer is. So don't tell me that this fight doesn't sell. It's nonsense.
Okay. What about from a point where Eddie's saying in terms of global subscriptions for DAZN? Because obviously, if you were to do the fight, this would be on DAZN. Frank said he's happy for David to go and box in the show, and he'll cover the purse even. If this was on DAZN, Eddie's saying from a global point of view, Avanesian doesn't bring in subscriptions.
I don't know what Eddie's DAZN is doing globally, but David Avanesian is respected a lot harder than the last four. Like the last two opponents Connor's boxed of a combined age of 70. Out of the last four opponents, they're all on back of losses and draws. David has been in America. He had a close fight with Peterson. He beat Shane Mosley. He had one loss because he had a bad night. But since then, he's gone to Spain twice and smashed the living daylights out of Kerman Laranga, who was a Brit basher. You know, let's say it how it was. He was feared in the world. Not only that, let's go back a little bit. Was Josh Kelly knocked out? And by the way, I respect Josh and I wish him nothing but the best. He's shown balls of a warrior that night and he got in the ring. And, you know, I want to put that out. But he was touted as the next superstar, touted him for Kell Brook and Amir Khan. And then David don't start saying that David doesn't have any sort of clout. Yes, Danny Garcia will be a bigger name in the US. We're not going to get that fight. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what type of numbers he'd do globally. You know, in my own admission, it wouldn't. I think the biggest fight for Connor Benn now is Kell Brook. But I know people about Kell. That fight's not going to happen unless Eddie pays an absolute ridiculous amount of money. So what's the next biggest fight available? Why are you getting me on here on this day, on Bank Holiday Monday? Because it's got to make news. Don't anybody tell me that fight doesn't sell and doesn't do big subscriptions.
So I feel like the point you're making here is that in terms of Brook and Khan, you're saying, well, it looks like Brook's going to box Eubank, and the money they wanted was like 10 million for that, so that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, that's all.
Amir Khan, you know, he was asked about that, kind of avoided it and said, you know, I'll have to think about it. So that's probably off the table as well for next. And you're saying the PBC guys in terms of Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, those kind of guys, it's just not going to happen because of his relationship with Al. So are you saying at this present point, if those four couldn't be landed, which you'd say then fair enough, you've got a massive name there. But if you can't land them, are you saying AVANESYAN's the biggest fight for Connor Benn?
100%. You tell me a bigger fight.
What? Well, realistically, the world champions in terms of Spence and Crawford, don't see that happening.
But they're unifying. They're unifying.
Yeah.
You're not going to get
all the names we mentioned there in terms of Brook, Khan, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman. Obviously, those don't happen. There's not many welterweights out. He said about Adrian Broner, Neil Broner could pull that off.
Yeah, Broner's a decent name, but again, it follows the suit of a lighter man, etc. Me being in the game, not being disrespectful, it's just they just bring. If he comes, he's just someone mouthy. He'll try. You know, Broner does do good numbers in America. I'll own up to that. But on my poll, 51%, which is 2,150, I think. No, sorry, 2,650. Says they wanted AVANESYAN out of 5,000. And then 30%, which is 1,600, said Broner. So if you run that over 100,000 poll, you can see what the British fans want. Hey, you know, I remember Eddie saying something to Josh Keller, this is the fight that shoots you into the stars. Something along them lines, really emulate, really put you up there. But now it's for Connor Benn. It's not that fight. Ask Josh Kelly. Ask Josh Kelly, did he say that to him? Is this the fight what pushes you towards stardom? So is that not what David AVANESYAN is for Connor Benn? Especially after he's beat Josh Kelly, Liam Taylor. I disagree with a lot of things what he says, Umar. And I hope that the fans, you know, go and write down everything I've said, go and have a look. Eddie said AVANESYAN's its same thing as Butiav and Stanios. Are you having a laugh? Maybe with regards ability, but not with regards his name in the UK. He's a big name. It's an insult. He's a big name in the UK, Umar. And I don't know where this is coming from, but we get very little criticism with regards David and Ben. It's all positive. And if you look carefully at anyone who writes out critical under our posts or anything, they're like people with no followers and 2 followers and things like this. It's like there's people out there trying to set a precedent. The fans aren't stupid. You know, you click on someone who's got 6 followers, but then he insults you. It's all nonsense, man. I don't know who's doing that, but it's nonsense, Umar.
Okay. What do you think about Connor Benn as a fighter, and what do you make of his performance on Saturday against Van Heerden?
Yeah, I feel that, you know, unfairly, I'm sort of being dragged towards Connor a little bit like Josh Keller. Now, what happened with Josh? I'm not this manager, Umar. Umar, I've seen you over the last 6 months. And how many times have I said I don't want to do interviews?
Yeah, loads. Yeah.
I don't want to be this manager who's famous. It's not about me. It's about the fighters. I know there's people out there who want to be famous and shove their face and, you know, and you can guess who. But I let the fans think who that is. But Connor Benn, I respect him. I respect every single fighter who gets in that ring. Anyone who's opposed us, any of my fighters ever in life, or any fighter who's ever been managed, are respected by me. And that's a fact, that Umar. And I look at Connor Benn. I remember years and years ago, I remember seeing Chris Eubank on a bill. I can't remember who promoted it. And Connor Benn was low down. Well, it would have been Matchroom. And Eubank were being disrespectful. And I felt sorry for Connor that day. I actually liked Connor Benn. He went over to David and Carl. Well, he didn't go over. He waved to him. We've got respect for each other. When I see Connor, I'll shake his hand. And I look where Connor was at the beginning of his career, where he was getting stick, and I look at what he's achieved now. Absolutely fantastic. I respect Connor Benn. But on all my previous interviews, I've said, I feel it's people about him putting pressure on that young man's shoulders. So I think that answers it all with regards to Connor Benn.
And my last question is, Neil, is it realistic to happen next? I mean, we know Dave was with Frank, and obviously Connor's with Eddie. Is this even realistic, this fight?
Yeah, well, Frank made an offer for Connor, as you know.
Yeah,
it was a proper offer. Realistically, did we expect him to accept it? Possibly not. But Frank has told. Do you know what? I look at how long have I been with Frank now? 13, 14 months. That man has been a true man of honour to me. And that man said to me, I will allow David Avanesian to go and fight Connor Benn. Now, what's best for the fight is with my manager's cap on, is if the WBC order number 2 and number 5, which is Ben and David, and then they get paid a shitload of money. And I know that with Frank, he'll just go into his vault again and start backing us. So, you know, if the WBC order Connor and David, which Connor would have to accept that, how can Matchroom, Eddie Hearn and Connor Benn say that fight doesn't stack up?
Well, I think he said, Eddie, I said to him, you know, if that was ordered as a WBC final eliminator, as you just said, then number 2 and number 5, and we know Ennis and Ortiz are probably looking at a different direction. So that could actually well happen. He said, then we'd really strongly consider it more. Ben and Evan.
Well, Mauricio Sullivan's in London next week. I'm going to be at the Fury fight. I'm sure Frank will be talking. There's your chance. Go on, Eddie. Give him a ring. There you go. Let's have it. Go and ring Al Eamon up, because in Frank Smith's own admission, you won't get nothing out of Eamon. He's told me that himself. So you're mixing it up between Braun, Mikey Garcia, David Avanesian. Well, there's a final eliminator and an EBU. You tell me that fight isn't right. They can't get out of it. If they turn around and decline that, it's because people around Connor don't fancy the job. And if that's the case, don't. You ready, pal?
Just picking us back up with Neil Marsh. We're having some Wi-Fi difficulties. We're coming to the end anyways. Neil, you were just talking about how if they don't get Mikey, Danny, Amir Khan, Brooke, there's nowhere to go bar David Avanesian, especially if the WBC order it as a final eliminator.
Yeah, I was just saying that. I think I was saying that don't be having a dig at us fight week, Connor's fight, to everybody knows I can be outspoken when I've got to fight for what I believe is right. And could this have been just to get Neil rattled to come out and defend his fight, etc.? Coincidentally, a few days before Connor fights. Now, like I said, don't be having digs at us if you don't fancy the job. It's black and white. That little month where we had a real good go with it, we've been quiet since. And it's like, if you don't fancy it, leave us alone. No problem. Next week it might not be relevant. Keith Thurman might get ordered against us, and we are accepting it, and we'll travel. There's no problem. But, how can they justify, like the poll said, with 5,300, 5,200 people, the British public don't want Mikey Garcia and Adrian Broner. I think they'd accept Broner, but the fight they really want is David Avanesian. And don't don't lose another one of these blockbuster fights, you know, because people are getting in the way of it. Do a proper poll on your social media, Eddie, to your million followers. Who do you want, Braun or Danny Garcia, etc.? Just give. You always say you want to make the best fights. You want to make the fans happy. Well, there you go. You've got the perfect fight. You know, I don't want to keep coming back and forward, Umar, because it looks like we're chasing. It looks like we're the ones at it. Obviously, there's a couple of other platforms who'll want to do an interview, and I will give them the interview out of respect for you media guys. But leave us alone. You know, if you're not interested, piss off. Leave us alone. You know, we're going to fight. We'll fight again in the next few months. So we're happy. Hopefully, WBC order. Just jog on with your lives. Don't be kicking us. Fight with the corner, because it's not respectful. That's just my opinion.
Okay, well, listen, Neil Marsh, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV and giving me about half an hour of your time today. So, yeah, appreciate it. And we will catch up soon in Derby for Zach Parker's huge fight. All right, thank you very much for your time.
You get knocked, Sparta! No hug needed!
Welcome, Team Everlast, to the Team Everlast Fitness app. Download the Everlast Fitness app and find your greatness within.